right now. And hopefully this is going out to, oh, damn, I didn't open the chat thing. Chat. So many things. So many things going on right now. Yep. All right. I got a special. Oh, look, it works. So I got a special screen here. Yes, sir. What's up, everybody? You can hear me if you're watching the stream. I see y'all. This is the behind the scenes, the pre-show to the show, before the after party, before the after show, before it's the before party. So that's what you guys see. So we're about to go live, and yeah. I hear me coming through somebody's thing, but that might be Cindy. So when she disconnects, it'll be all cool. So yes, y'all, if y'all paying attention to the pre-show, if you're tuned in, this is Hip Hop Could Save America, the podcast, live. So I'll explain what all that means. Do stay tuned. We're about to get into it. We've got a guest. We've got some banter. I'm going to tell you some things. And then we're going to get going. Technically, it's 1 o'clock on the East Coast, Eastern Time. And I'm just looking to see if I see me. Just bear with me, y'all. We're about to get started. Looks good. Looks good. Looks like we're rocking. All right. I got me Manny-ceptions going on. So we're about to officially start. So I guess this is how we're going to do it. Every Monday through Thursday, the month of September, Hip Hop Could Save America, the live podcast. We'll also go to the podcast feed, so be sure you subscribe to that. All right. Let's get going.
The thing about hip hop today is it's smart. It's insightful. The way that they can communicate a complex message in a very short space is remarkable. And a lot of these kids, they're not going to be reading the New York Times. That's not how they're getting their information.
My hip hop will rock and shock the nation. Hip hop culture is more than music.
Peace to you and speak the truth. Show 'em what peace can do when there reach for you.
My hip hop will rock and shock the nation. Rap is something you do. Hip hop is something you live.
So hip hop didn't invent anything, but hip hop reinvented everything.
Yes, y'all. Peace and love, everyone. It's your man Manny Faces rocking with you live and direct from beautiful Brick City, Newark, New Jersey. Check 1 2, check 1 2. I hope that you hear me and see me clearly. If you're listening on the podcast feed, you don't know what I'm talking about. You've been getting podcast episodes of Hip Hop Can Save America for some time. They're nice, in-depth, long, well-produced, well-edited interviews with incredible people using hip hop in innovative and inspiring and often surprising ways in areas like education, health and wellness, science and technology, politics, activism, and social justice, spirituality, the fine arts, a lot of different ways that we have seen hip hop being used to uplift humanity and improve society. That's my job. My name is Manny Faces, the conductor of this ride, and I welcome you to the live version of Hip Hop Can Save America, the podcast. Again, on the podcast feed, You're not used to this. So bear with me. Stick around for a little bit. What I'm doing is Monday through Thursday for the entire month of September 2020, starting today, I'll be going live at 1 p.m. Eastern every day on social media platforms. Facebook, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, which don't think anyone follows me on Twitch, but follow me on Twitch if you're there. In any event, live with a special guest every day. So that's like 16 guests over the next 4 weeks. So you're still going to get guests. You're still going to get interviews. There's going to be a little bit of commentary that I'm going to offer up. I'm going to put you on to a couple of really cool, innovative hip hop things in the news. And then we're going to talk to a dope guest, starting with, as you can see on the screen here. See, if you're watching, you can see this. But if you're podcasting it, you'll read it. So either way, Silent Night. My man, my mellow, he works with me on a number of projects, but most importantly, he's an artist extraordinaire. He's a frontman of a great band, the band called Fuse. He's an Innocence Project ambassador. And again, the project we work on, he's an artist in residence for the Newsbeat podcast. So all of these things is why Silent Night is the inaugural guest. He is a fantastic member of humanity, but an artistic, creative, kind of genius. I don't want to, we use the term crazy, but so we'll be talking to Silent Night in a few minutes. Again, these episodes will all go to the podcast feed. I'm now talking to the viewers. So if you haven't subscribed to the podcast, I love that you're hitting me here. Say hi in the chat room. I can see your chats. I can see chats. I can see, your comments in the comments section. I can see your comments. Please say hi. Let me know you hear me, see me, feel me, smell me, taste me. Let me know everything's good to go. And we'll be doing this Monday through Thursday. And then Friday, an all new episode of the more traditional Hip Hop Can Save America. So a full length, kind of edited, sit down interview with somebody, again, doing this great work in hip hop. Chilo, I see you. Thank you. And you get shout outs if you're watching live and commenting live. So that's cool. The podcast folks don't get that. But so we'll have that special bonus every Friday. So even if you're a traditional podcast listener and you're like, I really like the long sit down, I don't like when Manny just talks off the top of his head. Cool. I got you every Friday. Stick with me. Stick with the feed. hiphopcansaveamerica.com for all information, past episodes, links to subscribe, how to contact us, how to get this cool shirt. I mean, we got a little merch action happening. If you feel like checking that out, I appreciate it. So once again, Monday through Thursday, Hip Hop Can Save America live right here on wherever you're checking me out. I wanted to do this. I'll just give you a very, very brief. You may not know me. If you do, I've been doing this for a long time. Whether it's been through podcasting, going live is not new to me. For 3 years, from about 2011 to 2014, I started a podcast. This is a long time ago, before podcasting was really, big, called the New York Hip Hop Report. It was an extension of Birthplace Magazine, which was an online publication that I created, both of which to document the mostly independent, but sometimes mainstream hip hop music scene in and around New York City. This was at a time when they said New York hip hop was dead. But in fact, New York hip hop was quite alive and quite well. And it lived primarily in the independent spaces that littered the city. Litter is not a good word, but you know what I mean. That dotted the city and the surrounding boroughs. I was on Long Island at the time, so shouts to my 6 borough folks in Long Island and Jersey. During that time, I discovered not only was there great independent artists, one of which is going to be my guest today, Silent Night from the band called Fuse. Not only were there great independent artists that were out there really creating incredible work, creative work, progressive hip hop. The rest of the country was trying to sound like the rest of the country, and New York started to do some of the same. But a lot of people didn't. But they weren't stuck in the old days. They were doing some real good new stuff. So I started talking about and documenting those folks. Eventually, I also stumbled upon a lot of people who were using hip hop in really innovative ways. So not just artists, but organizations, educators, teaching artists, again, activists, people who are on the ground. Shouts to Rebel Diaz and RDAC. Shouts to people working in the education field. Shouts to Science Genius and a bunch of different things that I was coming across that really made it obvious to me that, number one, while New York hip hop was still way more betterer than most people in the world thought, there was a lot of other things happening in this city that exemplified hip hop culturally. What a impressive amount of uplifting and improving humanity could be done through hip hop. Of course, then I realized this is also past New York. It's nationwide, it's worldwide. Pardon me. So I expanded the operations. I said, look, I'm going to do this nonprofit called the Center for Hip Hop Advocacy, which I started. And I started doing podcasting and writing that was more aligned with that concept, that hip hop can save America. And what does that mean? It's not the only thing that can save America. We need a lot of things. We need a lot more now than when I first started this damn thing. But what it means is that there are qualities and methodology and people that are at their core hip hop. They are hip hop. They embody hip hop. They may not be artists, rappers, DJs, graph dancers. They may not be an artist, but they're no less hip hop. And they are doing things in areas like education, science and technology. Shouts to hip hop hacks. I'm going to do this throughout this whole series. I'm just going to name an organization drop. And I'm going to want you guys to follow up with what I'm talking about. All of these organizations and individuals are super important. They're doing super good, important work. They are largely underrepresented, and they are largely underdocumented. You won't find a lot of hip hop media talking about the people doing this work. So that became my job, and here I am. Once again, my name is Manny Faces. You will find me here doing this Monday through Thursday. If you're just tuning in, Monday through Thursday for the month of September, 1 o'clock Eastern sharp. So come join me. We're going to have guests. I got a guest coming up soon. And it's all to further that mission. That the people who are using hip hop in innovative, inspiring, and helpful ways, they're not new. This isn't theoretical. If you've been listening to the podcast, and I do recommend you go back and binge to some of the other episodes, we've had educators that have receipts. OGs in the game, Dr. Gloria Latson Billings, Dr. Bettina Love, who also works in hip-hop civics training. They don't teach you civics in school anymore. People don't know about the election process. They don't know about government. And you see some of that, the effects of that in our political discourse, because we're not being taught. Our kids aren't being taught. But through hip-hop, we can learn these things. Through hip-hop workshops, hip-hop oriented workshops. Just talking about Dialect and Pam, who run financial literacy workshops that incorporate hip-hop. Science Genius, again, the great program by Dr. Chris Emden and Dr. Ajapong and others who are using hip-hop in science classrooms across the country for years to improve students' understanding and mastery of the sciences. It's happening. This is how you go back and listen to the episodes. You'll find out that when we talk about hip hop, I want to make sure that we don't stop the conversation at the barbershop talk, top 5, today's music versus old music. All that stuff is relevant and important, and we can have those discussions. But if we're not talking about how hip hop music and culture and ethos and lifestyle is being used in all these other areas, then we're doing a disservice to the young people who could be greatly and are being greatly affected and improved by these tactics. So across this series and across the whole podcast, my job is to make sure we all know about the people that are doing this work. That leads to today. Kicking it off, it's one of the most important intersections to me with this whole thing, because I dabble in it in several different ways. Hip-hop and politics / activism / social justice. Now, I do a talk, a lecture. I go out and I speak. And one of the things I've talked about is this ongoing intersection of hip-hop and social justice. We know that from its roots, it's been a movement of social justice, just in its nature. And then through the years, the music represented that. We had artists that were on the radio representing sort of this fight the power, this fight for social justice, and it came through the music. And then at some point, the record industry and the music industry decided, for whatever reasons, I could guess a few, that this isn't what we're doing anymore. We're not focusing on this as part of our business model. And then a few years ago, in my talk, I mentioned a few years ago, Questlove from The Roots went on Instagram and lamented this fact that there aren't a lot of protest musics out there. We don't have artists on the radio that are, and he was pointing to all musicians, but he did kind of, it was lean towards hip hop, that we don't have artists that do that anymore. And he put on a face, and a lot of people, yeah, I agree. Yeah, absolutely. Questlove. Yeah, no doubt. It's not like it used to be. And I took great offense at that, because I had been working with independent artists that were not only doing that kind of music, but doing that kind of work out there on the streets, from Rebel Diaz again, Tef Po, Immortal Technique, La Tere. I could go down the list of artists that were actually artist activists, artists doing the work. More recent, Genesis B, a lot of people out there doing the work as artists. And I thought that was a disservice to paint all of music as ineffective at dealing with social justice unless we had songs on the radio, unless Jay-Z was dropping a super woke song that made it to, all the clear channels. So I talk about that. And in my work, I want to highlight the people that do that kind of work. That being said, one of the ways that I do that is through a podcast called Newsbeat. We're going to talk about that a little bit in a few minutes, because we are going to switch and bring on our first inaugural guest to talk more about this intersection of hip hop, music, culture, and social justice. My man, my mellow, Silent Night. How are you, sir?
What up? What up? What up? I'm well. Thank you. How are you, sir?
I'm doing as well as can be expected, with 1,000 windows open and 17 screens, and making sure that I'm sounding good and looking good and tasting good for the audience. So I'm doing well.
Glad to be here. Thank you for having me on here. Inaugural guest. I'm honored.
Yeah, man. I mean, you already know how much I know you and worked with you and respect you as an artist, as a advocate for great things, and as a friend. So it was a no-brainer. I wanted a friendly face to make sure that, I didn't screw this up too badly. Happy belated birthday.
Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you,
Yes,
sir.
indeed.
How'd you know it was my birthday? No, yeah. It was.
Facebook told me. So otherwise, I'd have no idea. So where can we start? You do a lot of your screen here says that you do a lot of things. So if you see it on the internet, it must be true. You are an MC, an artist, roughly you're Jersey, New York kind of nomad in non-COVID times. So
Definitely.
You represent those areas. And you've been doing this for quite a long time. You're also the front man of the great band called Fuse. We see the logo in the background.
Yes, indeed.
And again, you're the artist in residence for the Newsbeat podcast. Let's start with, among other things, an Innocence Project ambassador. We're going to get into all that. Let's just start with, real quick, and this is very brief. This isn't a full-length, interview. But your background, how long you've been an artist, how long you've been putting out music on a semi-professional to professional level?
I would say that's been about 13 years, which is insane to me. But 13 years ago, I should say I put out my first full-length album, and that was it's called Hunger Strike. And at the same time, put it out. Raucous Records had a campaign called Raucous 50, and I was a part of that program, a part of that campaign. So
some other big names on Raucous back then.
Oh yeah, a lot. I grew up. First of all, I grew up listening to like the big names on Raucous, so it was already like a dream come true, honor for me to be even associated with that name, with the razor blade, with the logo, so it was really cool. They put out my album digitally, and I put out my album independently myself, the physical album. And this was around the time when web forums were popping, before the blogs and stuff like that. So thankfully, with the help of my man DJ KO and a bunch of other people. We got some named producers on there, some named guests on there. On the Hunger Strike album, had Sean Price on there, had Ayatollah, have Illmind, have Pumpkinhead, Superstition, the Beat Miners. So with that, with those supporting cast, with that supporting cast, we was able to get it into record stores in Europe and the U.S. and Asia and stuff, and was able to get and people were talking about it on the forums and stuff. And then through there, once the blog started popping, the early days of some of the big hip hop blogs, I was blessed to have them, already kind of have an ear out, and then they started promoting and stuff like that. So I'm definitely thankful to have years, under my belt of releasing music, releasing solo music, and then a few years after that, started working with the band called Fuse. Yeah, it's been a while. There's a lot. So a bunch of solo music, a few band called Fuse albums, so many shows, even just, from rocking with DJs, which I was amped when I got to do, but then starting to rock with the band, the full live band was amazing,
Tell me about the band called Fuse. How long have y'all been together as a unit? And tell me about the lineup. This is when I talked in the beginning of the show, I think you heard about how New York hip hop was, kind of largely written off for a bunch of years. There was so little attention being paid to the incredible underground independent scene. Now, a lot of people think underground independent is just a bunch of really bad rappers trying to make it, in the music business, and we've seen some of that happen too. But there's staple series that happened in and around New York City some are still going on in one incarnation or the other. I'm talking about End of the Week. 20 something years. I'm talking about Freestyle Mondays, 20, almost 20 years. And the lineup was no slouch either. Tell me about the band called Fuse and the lineup and how you guys were proving my point all those years that there was incredible talent and musicianship and progressiveness in the New York City hip hop scene in the 2010s.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We started the lineup actually 10 years ago this year. So we're coming upon the anniversary very soon. We started it. I remember it was a conversation with me, X, and Toast from the band, pretty much, and just having a place where we can all build, work on live music together, basically create music together. Some of the stuff that we did at the lineups or some of the jams that we did would end up becoming actual band called Fuse songs or hooks or things like that. The energy of the live shows was already amazing, so we just love that cypher feel too. We would have featured guests, but we would also have, we would always open it up. We'd have a producer maybe play a beat, and then the band starts building off of that, and just very organic. Have singers, producers, and everybody. Yeah, singers, producers, and everybody just jump in.
I always loved that because you always brought. You open, it wasn't like it's our show and we're gonna rock. Did rock, but you always had featured guests, and then you had DJs. Some really good one really really good DJ started rocking with y'all for a while. And shouts to DJ Hansi, also yes. The other DJ, and of course I DJ'd for the band called Fuse for the lineup in its later years. In the early days, y'all were rocking every week. You guys were putting out all kind of music and collaborations. It was just a fantastic scene, man. Anyone who knows the lineup knows that it was like family, and new people were welcome, and new people stumbled across every week, and then every month, and now 10 years later, it's crazy.
Definitely, we we built we built relationships there ourselves. Other people built relationships. People formed groups. That people that met at the lineup, then they form a group, or they form a band, or they get married, or have a kid, or have a relationship, or there's all this amazing stuff that's happened throughout the past 10 years with the lineup. And to your point before, it was when people talk about underground hip hop and independent hip hop and all that stuff, a lot of times there's so much talented people and so much garbage in both, in mainstream and in underground. So it's like there's, the traditions of some of these shows like the lineup, which we're following a tradition of, reminds me of Lursa's Lounge and stuff like that.
Right. Oh yeah, big shouts to that as well.
So, and again, speaking of ruckus, but you had cats like Kweli and stuff like that going to these open mics at Lursa's Lounge. You had the ones in Philly with the Roots crew. There's all these different people that before they were known and famous or technically become mainstream in a way, are going to these events like that. You know, it's definitely an important part of the culture and of the history itself too.
I think it gets written off a lot, and I guess you guys were a big part of it, and that again that parlayed into a lot of the work that the band called Fuse went on to do. Always kind of politically minded in the background in some of the music you made. We've talked a little bit about some early. You were playing music. You guys were rocking for Ras Baraka, the mayor of Newark. During his campaign, you were kind of helping as sort of artists, ambassadors for that for that campaign, and you would incorporate some of these ideas into the music over time. Did that at some point become sort of more the focus, either as the band or you yourself? And then we'll talk about, obviously, Newsbeat changed that to here was something specifically for that, but
exactly,
that lane.
But I think it was always a natural part, like I think definitely throughout the years it became more, but it's always been important, and it's never been like it wasn't a conscious effort to be like, we should do this more, we should talk about this more, or
Right.
But speaking of Ras Baraka, shouts to Ras Baraka. And so his father, the late great Amiri Baraka, was a personal hero and mentor to X, our guitar player in the band called Fuse.
Right.
So because of that, even before, even when I would just know somewhat of Amiri Baraka, it was through X and that we just started building a lot more, writing some of the first band called Fuse songs, like Love and War in the City was written. It came out of conversations about organizing, about Newark, about Amiri, about Ras Baraka, and his previous campaigns before he became mayor and stuff like that.
Right.
So it's definitely always been.
It's
around.
always been-
Definitely been in the spirit of myself and the rest of the band.
In the DNA for sure.
Yeah.
So speaking of that, some years pass, we're rocking, we're hanging out, I'm DJing for y'all. I get this opportunity to produce and help edit and help co-create, but then produce and put together, along with a fantastic team over at Maury Creative Studios, a production company out on Long Island that used to be the newspaper that I worked in when I was in journalism. And we got this opportunity to create and put together this podcast called Newsbeat. And Newsbeat's a really incredible blend of this. So when I talk about the work being done by artists, and again, there are artists who run youth centers and youth programs and go out and campaign for officials and go out and speak about injustices. They're artists. We see my son all the time. We see a lot of people who are hip hop that are out there on the ground. What was great about the Newsbeat podcast is that was a way for us to do it on the journalism tip, infusing podcast reporting on social justice issues, adding music to it, sort of like Schoolhouse Rock in a way. You know what I mean? Like, you teach some concepts, you bring light to some issues through music, you weave a musical bed underneath, which is part of what I do. And then we said, let's get independent hip hop artists to come and spit lyrics that are specifically crafted for each of one of these episodes. It's a really hard concept for people who've never heard Newsbeat to understand.
Yeah.
It's sort of like Democracy Now! And Black Thought had a podcast baby, but it's not like Hamilton. We're not rapping the news. You know what I mean? We're doing solid, high-level journalist reporting. So we have interviews. Shouts to Rashed and Chris from Newsbeat, the editors. They're going to be on this show, by the way, to talk about this in depth. We're interviewing folks like Dr. Cornel West, Rosa Clemente, Chris Hedges, real, thought leaders and people on the front lines of social justice issues, experts. We've had a bunch of people on talking about coronavirus and how it disproportionately affects communities of color, all these things. We weave it over music to set a mood, and then we have an artist come in and rap about the topic. You were our artist in residence, in fact, our debut inaugural artist for that series, to test it out on a series that we've now, on an episode that we call MLK Jr., What They Don't Teach You in School, that looks at the legacy of Martin Luther King and how he's often whittled down to I Have a Dream and, Turn the Other Cheek and let's keep it moving. There's much more to the Martin Luther King legacy, the Poor People's Campaign, him being assassinated in part for it, you know what I mean? That we delve into in this musical journey. And again, you were proof of concept that you wrote lyrics specifically to exemplify this concept. What has the Newsbeat podcast meant to you?
Oh man, Newsbeat podcast it means a lot to me. I'm definitely a fan. Also, I always say of even the episodes that I'm not on. But yeah,
shouts to our rotating cast of we have another artist in residence. Shouts to Liquid, who many of us know. Shouts to all the artists that have participated. We've had Rebel Diaz again. We've had Rabbi Darkside. We've had Osiris Anthem. We've had Napoleon the Legend. I don't want to leave out anybody. So again, my experience with folks like you that are really brilliant, talented lyricists that, y'all could spit and battle and talk about, all the rapidy rap things, but you could also lend a really great perspective. So it's been writing about issues like mass incarceration.
Yeah, I think
the drug war, that's been heavy sometimes.
I think it's been crazy because it's been really dope. It's been helpful and challenging in a good way, because when I first started doing Newsbeat, I remember, I've been already writing for years, recording, and touching on different topics, right? Not really having a narrow subject matter, But once I started doing Newsbeat, it was like very, very specific. I have to write 3 verses about this specific thing, this specific issue, social justice.
Like a rapper book report.
And it kind of was. It was like, even though we got Rashad and Chris who are like the actual journalists, I felt like that too. I'm like, I get my assignment, I get the transcript of the interview sent to me, I get the the music from you, I get all these pieces, and then start getting the audio. So a lot of times I'll print them out on paper, or I'll sit there with the laptop. I do my own independent research. On top of that, I'm reading articles and other things about it, taking notes down, all that type of stuff. So it's definitely like an assignment that something that I take seriously. And one cool thing was that the same way we were writing the songs, like I mentioned, like about Love and War in the City, the same way we would write these songs with Fuse, that was kind of almost gearing me up, training me for stuff like Newsbeat, because that's the way we work as Fuse sometimes. If X, again, for example, or even, for Toast or Pocket, if somebody comes up with a song concept and they have maybe a riff or something, and they'll be like, yo, I have a lot of vision for this record, for this song. So we'll sit there and have a whole conversation about it. We'll email each other. I'll write a bunch of notes down, it's that kind of thing. So it's kind of cool to bring that
collaborative
to a larger degree. But yeah, having that collaborative mindset going into Newsbeat. And stuff that I've never written about before, some of these concepts,
and some of these that you may not have even known much about. I mean,
exactly, and I get to learn more about them.
As I put these things together, because for those listening, I basically assemble the music, I bring in the artist work, I edit the podcast. So I make it sound good, basically.
You do a lot of things, like me. We both do a lot of things.
But the material, it's the social justice issues that we know about. We hear about mass incarceration. We hear about e-carceration. We hear about a lot of these things, but we don't necessarily know the nuances, the intricacies of it. The war on drugs, great examples. Our second episode, but it was such a background information about Harry Anslinger in the 1930s and Billie Holiday and this movement against black and brown people and focusing on the musicians. And you see all of that today you've seen it with Nixon, you've seen it with Reagan, and now you see it with Trump. You see it in his administrations, hearkening back to this foundation that was laid back in the 30s. Yep. And just like I do another talk when I talk about how hip hop can hack everything and change, and do so many things to so many industries, and we've talked about how it has through the history. I didn't learn about a lot of, when KRS-One dropped You Must Learn in, 1994 and gave us all, who didn't know, a rundown of these amazing black inventors throughout history. We may not have learned of that stuff, but we learned it through rap. We learned it through hip hop. That was where we got put on. So one thing is that we're relaying information to people, and that's important. And we're doing it in this great way because podcasts are made for audio. Hip hop is really great with audio. Rap is very informative. You can pack a lot of words and a lot of concepts and a lot of perspectives. That's what we need. So we blend it together so good. By the way, we've won many awards for this, I have to say.
That's true.
So many awards. Here's mine.
I got
one of
mine.
mine.
Mine's upstairs.
So it's not cheap. As you can see from this setup we don't do things cheap. But what's also great about it is that every episode at the end, and we talk to experts, we talk to people who are actually in the field doing the work, people who run social justice organizations. We talk to them. So now you know what they do and what they advocate for. And then at the end of most episodes, we give you a reminder, hey, if this issue touched you, if the movement to close youth prisons is important to you, if Me Too behind bars, in other words, the women who are being silenced and being abused behind bars, we don't think about them during the Me Too movement. If 400 years of state violence against black women is an issue you need to hear more about, we've brought those issues to light. We've spoken about them. And we tell you what organizations are fighting that good fight so that you can actually do something about it. It's not always just enough to feel bad or have been educated about it, but we're giving it to you where you can go and do something. And part of that is proven by your involvement with the project that's on your shirt. The very fine organization, the Innocence Project. You did an episode of Newsbeat called Exonerated and Broke. If you could just let people know what that episode was about and how that led you to work with the Innocence Project.
Yeah, that was an early episode as well, and it's called Exonerated and Broke. So it's basically about exonerate people who are locked up, who are incarcerated, or who are freed and exonerated because they didn't commit the crime. They're free eventually because of stuff like DNA evidence, and depending on the state they live in, they can get zero money or a little bit of money or sometimes more money. So sometimes it's just like, oh, pat on the back, sorry about that, we locked you up for 30 years, you didn't do it, good luck, that's it. So
right.
So it's kind of it's kind of insane actually. And so we did an episode about that. We had an exoneree on the episode. You guys also had Rebecca, I believe. You had somebody from Innocence Project,
right?
And you had me rhyming the doing the verses. And I remember, I think it was you who told me yo, what if you wrote from the perspective of the exoneree, right?
Right,
and
right.
We kind of made that it told the whole story, first verse, second verse, third verse, when you listen to the whole thing of that person, of
what they go through. And again, we had Alan Newton, and he gave us his experience, and his experience, being locked up for a crime he didn't commit, spending, I don't remember now, 30 years?
It was 30 plus or 20 plus. I don't remember, but it was
a really large number of years in jail, being exonerated, telling his story free from his apartment. It was amazing to hear, and to hear what he had to go through to then get compensation from the city and the state for this clear violation, how they do, folks. But also some of the other stories that were told through the episode, through media clips and through other interviews.
Yep.
You actually were able to kind of take a little bit of all these things, plus how you see the world as a person, and really craft a super compelling narrative about what it's like. I'm telling you, that visceral kind of look from your angle, it was one thing to hear Alan go through his thing, tell his story, and then you kind of told everyone else's story.
It was kind of, definitely was, I wasn't trying to tell Alan's story again, like you said. So it was I took pieces from stuff that I heard him say, stuff that I read about, stuff from the news clips that you put into the episode. And it almost made this, I guess, technically fictional character that I was speaking from,
Right.
But at the same time, it was grabbing from all these different actual real life things that people do go through and are going through, that are exonerated or that are incarcerated or that are exonerated and broke. Yep. And through that episode, that's how the Innocence Project reached out to me. We stayed in touch. It was almost about a year later, I believe, that became official, and I became an Innocence ambassador for the Innocence Project. So yeah, definitely.
And that's something that they do. They have a bunch of celebrities and high-profile individuals.
Yeah, I was like, me? For real? No, I was checking the list, and it was like,
You're very humble.
Stephen Colbert and I don't know. I can't name. I'm gonna forget everybody right now.
Right,
Some of the newer ones, Michael K. Williams, who I got to meet. He's an Innocence Project event, and Niecy Nash, I believe now. Yeah. So there's so many people on there, and it's I mean, first of all, there's just that kind of cool aspect of like, oh, I'm amongst great company.
Sure.
But really, it's again, just I keep saying that word, but definitely an honor just to be able to help out at all, whether it's just retweeting, explaining it, coming on other shows and streams and talking about it, getting people to sign petitions, spreading the word on different causes and stuff like that they're doing. So they do amazing work over there.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate you for doing it. I appreciate them for making it happen, and I appreciate that we were able to help, kind of connect those dots unwillingly. We had no idea that this was going to be a thing.
But
Who knew? For anyone who's just tuning into the live stream, we are talking live on a stream. So there you go.
Yeah, you summed it up perfectly.
With Silent Night, he's an artist extraordinaire and MC for done a lot of work over the years. Frontman for the band called Fuse, as we just mentioned, an Innocence Project ambassador. And also the artist in residence for the Newsbeat podcast. This is Hip Hop Can Save America Live with me, Manny Faces. We're here live streaming Monday through Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern. You can check us out on Facebooks and YouTubes and hiphopcansaveamerica.com/live. Wherever in the world you are. These will also be transferred to our podcast feed. So please, if you don't get a chance to check in and check the videos, doing it this way, please subscribe to Hip Hop Can Save America wherever you subscribe to podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We have a bunch of old episodes that are more traditional, long interviews like this, but not so off the cuff. And also new bonus episodes like that dropping every Friday. So thank you. Shouts real quick to some people on the check-in. Shouts to Summer, associate producer Summer of the Hip Hop Can Save America podcast. Shouts to associate producer Cindy, who also helped put this live stream extravaganza happening throughout the entire month of September together and help me with booking. We have guests every single day, except tomorrow, which is weird, but I will work on that. It's like of all the days.
There's still time.
I know. Shouts to my folks from EPI. Shouts to Lunik and Sean and Jenny and Jovan, all on the check-in right now. Shouts to Baba Israel checking in on the chat. And shouts to you if you're tuned in and listening to this. I do appreciate you. Take a moment to share this real quick, just so that we could kind of spread the love a little bit, let people know what we're doing. Just share on your whatever you're doing, Facebook or what have you. And do note that the interview section, which you can see visually, but I'm saying verbally for the podcasters, is brought to you by Funkadelic Studios, a longtime friend of artists all throughout the New York City area. You see the logo here. Funkadelic Studios has been right in Midtown Manhattan, been holding it down for artists, recording, rehearsal spaces, recording studio, live equipment rental. They've been doing it up for years. We've used them. I couldn't get, you couldn't have a great event in New York City or be a great musician in New York City if you haven't walked through those doors. Funkadelic Studios, shouts to them. They have reopened post-pandemic crisis. There's reduced capacity. They are doing all the disinfecting and all the things they have to do, top quality, high-tech stuff, so that everyone comes in as safe and secure. So do check them out if you're an artist and you're itching to get back into the mix. They are there. Funkadelic Studios in New York City, a proud sponsor of the interview section.
Nice. Yeah, shout out to Funkadelic. Shout out to my band called Fuse people in the check-in too.
Oh, yes, indeed, man. Well, I figured they might be there, all like standing. I feel like they're all standing behind you.
They're all off camera.
Just
we
watching.
go everywhere together now.
So, Silent Night, once again, thank you for your time. Please, let's talk real quick, and then we'll let you go about what you might have coming up. I know you're just releasing. You didn't release it yet. I think I'm ahead of the curve with this.
Yeah,
you have a release.
You're definitely ahead of the curve.
You have a release upcoming. Of course, the band called Fuse is trickling out stuff all the time. Y'all doing live streams. Tell us, everybody, what you're involved with besides Newsbeat, that people can find out more and vibe with y'all.
Word. Yeah, so I definitely have a whole bunch of music that I've been working on. I don't have release dates yet, but I believe there's at least some little some treats coming soon. I'll just say that. But definitely a bunch of new music, solo music, and collabs. And band called Fuse, we're doing a monthly live stream right now. So since we can't do the lineup, it kind of transformed. We would do every other week digitally, but we're going back to the lineup kind of model. So we're doing second Saturdays. Second Saturday. So September 12th will be the next one, right on Facebook. Band called Fuse. Band called Fuse, right on Facebook. You can find us on all social media at Band Called Fuse. I'm also doing we're doing Record Ride Wednesdays. Now we're doing every Tuesday at 5 p.m. during September also. Every Tuesday in September, I'll be live at 5 p.m. at Arts New Brunswick on YouTube, and it's part of the Hub City Music Festival, which we're helping to raise money for Elijah's Promise, which is a community-based soup kitchen. Soup kitchen is basically the short way to put it, but they do a lot of things. They do a lot of amazing things for the homeless and hungry in the city of New Brunswick, and they need help. That number is rising of how many meals. It was something like last year they served 800 meals, and this year they served 8,000 so far, something like that. So that's every Tuesday at 5 p.m. You can find all the stuff on, me. Silent Night is busy on Instagram. Silent Night, Silent K and GHT. Of course, Silent Night with a K on everything. That's pretty much it. There's a lot. We both do a lot. Thank you for also being an ambassador of hip hop, and doing these shows like this. And always being a voice and spreading the word for real.
I appreciate the appreciation. It's good to work with folks that, like I say, I love, hip hop, music culture, all aspects of it, even the stuff that we don't always appreciate. We take because that's life. We don't like everything that goes on in life. We don't give up on life, right? I got a bunch of children. Like, one is not as cool as the rest. I don't give up. No, I'm just kidding.
Is that true? Nah, yeah.
None of them are as cool as Baby Girl Faces, so they've all lost since I've had her. But what's really soul ratifying, it's not the right word, what's really good for my soul is being able to work and do things like this. So I love telling these stories and sharing these stories. Shouts to Kyle Raps.
For sure.
Because like I said, we're talking about Newsbeat, we're talking about Innocence Project, you're talking about, politics, you're talking about love and more in the city. You're talking about Elijah's Promise. That's it. This is what I'm talking about. You're one guy, a pretty dope guy. Like, don't get it twisted. Not everyone's doing all the work you do, but there are others. We're part of a bigger picture. Absolutely. When it comes to social justice, activism, being an artist activist, being on the ground, doing the work, not just spitting about it, which is important. Mm-hmm. Doing the work in ways that they don't see and they're not going to talk about, and you won't be in the hip hop websites and blogs, which I don't even know what you call them nowadays, because then shadows of their former selves. But you're not going to be seeing it, and you don't do it for that.
For sure, and that's true.
But you're doing it.
Yeah, and going to that point too is like there's certain artists, even if a certain hip hop blog posts my work, they're posting that song or that album. So even if it's like some artists don't even get the coverage, but then some artists get coverage for certain things, but you're shining a light onto those things, like you said, those other things that they do, which is pretty dope.
Yeah. And like I say, when you win an award for the Why We Riot episode of Newsbeat, which details the history of civil unrest in this country's history, so that when you look at what happened, it was kind of done in response to Baltimore, right? Right.
I can't even keep track anymore.
Right after Ferguson, and then in Minneapolis, and then in Kenosha. Like, it's still as unfortunately timely as ever, that episode. But the point I'm making is that episode was so well done by all of us that it wins an award for best podcast, best journalism podcast, New York Press Club, amongst other peers like the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal and Bloomberg and NY1. That's groundbreaking stuff. Mm-hmm. That's groundbreaking work, where there's a news podcast that got music and rappers in it and it's beating the New York Times. I'm not saying that for accolades. I'm not saying that because I'm patting myself or else on the back. I'm saying it because it's important journalism. It's got rappers in it. And we need to let people know that this is one way that hip hop does affect change,
Yep.
can lead towards people getting inspired and motivated and uplifted, and then get into their local political, instead of just being on Facebook all the time. Oh, I hate everything that's happening, and that's because we feel that way. We feel like we hate everything, and we're so mad. I don't care really what side of the aisle you're on. Being fed all the information and disinformation. I do care what side of the aisle you're on, but being fed all the misinformation and such, and just reacting to it is exhausting. It's tiring, and I know that some of us really want to do something. A lot of liberal folk or liberal-minded folk or people that necessarily were on the fence or not really as engaged saw what happened with George Floyd. They got involved. They said, "Hey, wait a minute. I didn't know it was like this. How can I get involved?" And then there's so much information on that. So what I love is that you're actually testament to how you can get involved on a smaller scale. You know, you don't have to follow the national organizations. You can find something local.
Mm-hmm.
You can work with, your New Brunswick family. You can work with Newsbeat. Like, it's local, but it's doing such important work. The Innocence Project is big, and, so you can do it all and find ways to do it. You, sir, are an example of it. If anyone wants to follow the organizations you're personally involved with, you can't do wrong by doing that. And if you just want to take that inspiration from a man, Silent Night, and, listen to some Newsbeat episodes, listen to Hip Hop Can Save America, find some organizations that are doing great work and support them and get involved, then I think this will have been a valuable experience for you and me here today, sir.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, that's it. We did it. I think we pulled it off.
Nice.
All right, live and direct from the dungeons, the band called Fuse Dungeons. It's your man, Silent Night. Once again, thank you, sir, for your time, and we will talk again soon, I'm sure.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, peace.
Love. Peace, bro.
There you had it. You had the first episode of Hip Hop Can Save America Live. SK, you're in the background. You're welcome to sit there and watch me stumble through the end of this show. But we are here Monday through Thursday, live on Facebook, live on YouTube, live on hiphopcansaveamerica.com/live with this kind of show. This is what we're doing. I wanted to see if we could do it every day, and we're going to try to do it every day. Monday through Thursday live. Friday, special bonus episode only goes out to the podcast feed. So please, if you have not subscribed to the podcast, please do so. You can go to hiphopcansaveamerica.com and find it out. You can, whatever podcast app you have, you can search for Hip Hop Can Save America. It's the only one with that name. And you can find it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all the places. And then join me back here tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern sharp. We don't have a guest for tomorrow, but we will. I'll bring Baby Girl Faces out. We'll make it happen. The rest of the month is booked solid. So if you enjoyed this, you're going to love this ride. I appreciate you for taking the ride with me, trusting me with your time. I know it's the middle of the day. People got a lot to do. We went a little bit longer than I thought we would. First episode, we don't know what we're doing. Shouts again to the band called Fuse Fam, K Dez, Mr. Pocket, I see you out there. Michael Doggett, thank you so much. We'll be hearing more from you soon as well, sir. Thanks to everyone who supported me all these years. Once again, super special shouts to associate producers Summer McCoy and Cindy. I appreciate y'all so much. You can follow me on Twitter at Manny Faces, Instagram Manny Faces NY. Wherever you're seeing me here, please stay in touch. And if you have any ideas, suggestions, comments, shout outs, praises, donations, I'm so bad at this. Right here. If you really like what you're doing and you want to contribute in a little way, I know I'm supposed to do this more often, but it's hard for me. But it's necessary. All this stuff takes money, time, these subscriptions, being able to do this is, costs a lot of money just to be able to switch angles. Y'all couldn't see it on the podcast feed. I switched to the other camera. It was pretty incredible. But subscriptions, assistance, all the things. If you want to support, I do have a Patreon account, patreon.com/Manny Faces. Any and all contributions go directly into these efforts. Y'all know me long enough. I've been doing this since 2008, if you count the start of Birthplace magazine. Everything I got goes into this. It's as transparent as it gets. But if you don't, you can pay me forward by tuning in every live stream at 1 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Thursday. subscribing to the podcast, and sharing. Take a second right now as we wrap up to share this somehow. Please let other people know what we're doing. I think it's super valuable. And if you ride with me, I'll ride with you back. So that's it. We're out of here. Once again, I will be back tomorrow, God willing, and for the rest of the month. Hip Hop Can Save America, y'all. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, reach out on social media or go to hiphopcansaveamerica.com and contact us. And we will talk again soon. Jay Silent Night, thank you so much, sir, for being our inaugural guest. And I do encourage everyone to follow up with all of the work he and the band called Fuse do. The Newsbeat podcast, Elijah's Promise, Hub City Music Festival. Jesus Christ, man. You know, he walks dogs, he plays badminton, I think he cleans up neighborhoods, all these things. But he's a great guy, and follow him on all the socials and be connected with him. Once again, thank you, everybody. I appreciate y'all. We'll be here tomorrow. Same Manny time, same Manny channel. Yeah, that's it. I'm kind of just stalling now, so y'all have enough time to go to the Patreon. But okay, I'm out of here. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Peace and love. Spread the word. Let's keep it going. Hip Hop Can Save America, y'all.